Welcome everybody to Kingdom Talks. I've got Dr. Sharnael Sehon with me and Karen Britt, who is co-hosting again. So, hey, if you're watching this, I encourage you to please grab your phone, share it with 4 or 5, 6 friends, get the word out, and just let people know we're here. And if you are interested in supporting what we're doing, we highly encourage you to become a partner with us. KingdomTalksMedia.com. You can go to the giving section there, and like I said, become a partner and help support, help get the message out. Bless you all. Thank you. Let's dive in. So, Dr. Sharnael, glad you are on with us today.
Hello, how you guys doing? Good to see you, and good to see you, Karen.
Yeah, wonderful to see you.
So Karen, once again, you're co-hosting, and
Yeah.
you connected with Dr. Sharnael and got her on here. So
Yeah.
why don't you go ahead and share a few things, and let's get this rolling.
Well, the first thing I want to say is when I first saw her, it was back in the Todd Bentley times, and I saw her, preach there. And I went to, during that, I went to see Todd Bentley in Florida during the Lakeland times myself during Memorial Weekend. And then I saw her, and I picked up one of her books on this being a seer. And actually, she was the first book I read on that. And then I just started following her. And then all of a sudden, like, I didn't see her for a while. And then she popped back in, and I go, oh, I'm going to start following her and watching. Next thing I know, she's starting to talk to people. And now she's full blown. She's got a great show that comes on. She brings way different types of people into different realms, and she's talking with them and finding out things in the spiritual realm, and just kind of exposing and bringing people out to teach us. But she also, I'm going to let her share some of this stuff. She's got a book out that she's had. I'm not going to tell her whole story. I'll let her do it. But she has a book, and I want her to show her book and talk about that too, and because she's got some good meat for everybody to chew on.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Dr. Sharnael, would love to hear your story and how you got to where you're at, because I've briefly seen parts of your shows here and there, and it looks like you have a pretty big audience with your shows. And yeah, so tell us a little bit about your journey. I mean, were you in the church at one point and kind of got into all this, or
Yeah,
how did it all happen?
definitely a lot of interwoven, journey, as everyone has. My background is I'm born in Montana and mostly raised in the Northwest and overseas in Europe. My dad was military, so we traveled quite often, and part of that was in Montauk, which I was a part of the Montauk project there, which is another whole episode probably. But and I'm just kind of touching on some things that were kind of pivotal in life for me. But yeah, came back, moved to the South, and most of the people here at the time are in churches all over the place. And I was in my teenage years, and that was like a big deal to have friends and be able
Yeah.
to socialize. And so I had the question given to me, what are you saved? And I was just like, I didn't know what that meant. When I didn't grow up in church, I was like, you mean like from a boating accident or like a car accident or something? I, I didn't know. I had an encounter at 4 in Montana in my grandmother's house upstairs on Easter Sunday with Yeshua, and that was also pivotal right before I went to Montauk. And so there's just been a lot of synchronicities over things. I was born at 3:33. The doctor that delivered me was Dr. Harold Messenger. There's just been these kind of sign points of things. Jeremiah 3:33 is a biggie. Mysteries, things that are hidden, things that are behind closed doors. But when coming to the South, I met some great people who introduced me to the Bible and to God, and that was just amazing. And kind of got my programming in real good with learning the things. And later having to unlearn the things, and that's interesting. But what it did do is um, sparked my spiritual connection again, of just like talking to people that actually understood God, because I had that encounter at 4, but my parents weren't in church or anything, and I didn't really have anyone to talk about that kind of stuff with. And so
Yeah.
um, in 10th grade, I actually made a a commitment to be full-time ministry. Did the whole walk down the aisle, dedicated my life to full-time ministry. I always knew I was going to be in ministry, like since 4.
Yeah.
I didn't call it ministry. I knew it was just something of service and love and helping people to know who God is. And so when I was introduced to the program of church programs, I was like, oh, this is my vehicle. And of course, I didn't think it's a program at the time. I was just like, like, who knows how many programs I have this very second, that tomorrow I'm going to be like, what? So, so I am a work in progress, and I openly admit that. But yeah, but in the middle of that, I went to Bible school, went to seminary, was going to do the whole thing. And I was told that when I went to Bible school that I could not be a minister because of my gender. I didn't have the right body parts at the time, and the denomination that I was in, which I'm not anymore, obviously, still a woman, and not in that denomination.
Yes.
Proud woman. And so there was that. And always having dreams and visions, always having different things that were not didn't make a whole lot of sense. Started having dreams about a man named Bob Jones, and basically
Yeah.
started to Google and say, like, who is this dude? And up came this thing from North Carolina, I think, of like some university. And that was like, I don't think that's it. So, but I landed on eBay. I got on eBay and had just typed in, Bob Jones, and this thing came up on eBay. And there was like a cassette tape of this guy who was speaking about these things that would happen with his hands and the fivefold ministry, and experiences that were, pretty profound. And I was like, I got it. And I think, I'm speaking my age here, but I pretty much wore the tape out. I mean, I cried. I just was like, who is this man? And I just knew I would meet him. And so I looked to try to find anything about him, and I saw that he was doing some things with a man named Paul Keith Davis, who I absolutely adore, but didn't know at the time. And they were going to they had something coming up in Oregon with Todd Bentley, actually. And I was like, oh gosh, that would be amazing. But at the time I was in a really difficult situation with partnership, and I could barely get permission to go to the mailbox, let alone, go
Wow.
country. So, but the next day, I was just kind of like, okay, God, I did what I did and just whatever. And the next day I came back and there was a message in my email that said that he was going to be in Alabama. And so I went, I did get permission for that. I called the place ahead of time, and I was like, I had this dream about this guy, he's supposed to lay hands on me. I didn't even know what lay hands meant. I had to ask somebody what that was, because I was super Baptist and we didn't do the laying on hands stuff. And that was all old school. And, but anyway, the pastor there was really patient, and he was like, oh, he doesn't really do that. He doesn't do personal ministry, maybe Paul Keep, blah, blah. I went early the night before to make sure I would see this guy, to make sure I could get the directions, because I suck at directions. And there's like a prayer meeting in the parking lot at like midnight. I had driven in early, and the guy, I was like, oh, hey, this thing's tomorrow and I'm so excited, and I'm going to meet Bob Jones, and I have these dreams and he's going to pray for me. And the pastor was like, kind of like, okay, yeah, we'll see about that, and just kind of like blew me off. And really sweet guy, but he just kind of laughed. And so the next morning I came in, and I got on the fourth row because I couldn't get any closer. It was all like marked off for the specials. And but there I was in the middle, and I was waiting, and they came up after worship. During worship, they were like, Bob's going to be a little late. He's in a vision. And I was like, okay. And so I was looking, and I looked in my book, and I saw in Ephesians, we are seated in heavenly places.
Yeah.
And I mean, it went like through me. And first of all, because of the chair I'm on top, because that has a lot to do with time travel and literally being in heavenly places, and which is the galaxies, and but also just this time travel of just us without the machine, without the chair, and then the past tense of it, seated, as if we've already done it, we're already there. It's not something
Yeah.
to strive for. And I was like, you know how you get those and you're like, oh, and I was like, have you ever seen this? And I'm telling your number one over here. And I'm like, have you read? I'm telling the people behind me, did you see it? Like, already happened. And they're all like, yeah, that's cool. Calm down, crazy, cute lady, or whatever, but here comes, Bob down the aisle, and he comes up and he calls me out 4 times, praised me for different things. And then later, one of the things that he said to me was that I would be a teacher. Well, I had just quit seminary. And
Wow.
so I was like not looking forward to going back to school. And to me, that meant go back to school. I'm going to have to sit around and teach a bunch of snot-nosed kids. I wasn't a fan of kids at the time. I didn't have, I just had my own. And I was like, I'm so embarrassed. I'm not going to go back to school. I don't want to go do all this again. And so I was really miffed and just like kind of frustrated with what he said to me. He's like, because he said, you're a prophet teacher. And actually, he just said teacher at first. He did the whole hand thing. And so I went to the coffee shop and cried. I went in the bathroom and I just cried. And I was just like, that's not what you said. That's not what you said. I'm like talking in my mind. And I came out, and when I did, Bob was sitting there with Viola, and he had one chair open. And this guy pulls it out, and he's like, oh, we've been waiting for you. And I was like, dude, what is up with the whole teacher thing? And I told him, I'm like, if you knew what all I've done, like this year, I quit everything, all that stuff. And he said, he's like, stand up. And so I stood up, and he's like, I'm going to touch your stomach. And when you do, you're going to go to heaven, and you're going to see all this stuff, and it's going to make more sense. And I was like, okay, So I get up in the middle of this, like, not a Starbucks, but ish, and there's tons of people around. I have no idea. I've never had anything like this happen to my knowledge, not a church thing anyway. And I get up, and he touches my stomach, and boom, the whole coffee shop is gone, and I am on a bird in the air. And the bird is this big brown bird, and I am literally seeing the galaxies. I can hear Bob, but I can't see him. And he's telling me, "Do you see that? Do you see that?" And kind of walking me through that. And then basically I see the Earth, and it's a tiny little ball, and I'm getting closer, 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 and I see fire all around different parts. And he's like, "You see that? You see that?" And basically, I know I'm going to all those places. And
Wow.
and so anyway, then he says, it's time to come back. And I'm like, nope. And he's like, he says it again. And I'm like, nope, nope, no. And he's like, no, really, you have to come back now. And I came back. And when I did, my hands were raised and I couldn't speak. And there was like 40 people all around me just staring, and I didn't give a crap. And they had to literally pick me up and take me out, bring me to the church. And they brought me to the intercessory prayer room just to like figure it out, I guess. And but yeah, so that was pretty interesting. Later on, I found out that this was, I was attacked mentally. You're just a brown bird and all this stuff. And I went and talked to Bob, and Bob had said, no, that it's he said it's a prophetic bird. It's you're a prophetic teacher. And then later, Patricia King had found out about this encounter, and she'd called me up to Idaho, And when she did, I didn't know who this lady was, but I was like, if you know Bob and you know more about this and you can help me, okay, great. I went up there, and then she did the same thing. She basically called me out that first night and said, that she had had a dream about me, and that she had a dream with Mariah Woodworth, Eder, and Catherine, Catherine Coleman, and
Coleman, yeah.
and Amy Simple McPherson, and that she was supposed to drop these mantles on me and this other lady that was there, and call me into full-time ministry. So yeah, that was much later. That was actually a year later. And in between that, Bob had introduced me to John Paul Jackson, which I started working with him and started teaching for him. And so there's just been a lot of this, did conference ministries, for a long time,
Yeah.
taught, wrote books, did revivals, was on TV for 3 years. We had our own show in the United States, Canada, and overseas. But all that kind of just like ended when I got sick. I got really sick, and I went to try to figure out what was wrong with me. I went to all the Western doctors for about 6-7 years, couldn't get answers. Was only on was like 30 different medications, wasn't feeling better. It was mental gymnastics to be like, take this with this one, don't take that one, take it with water, this has to be at night, this has to be with food, these can never go together. Had a small suitcase that I traveled with everywhere I went just to figure out what I was taking. I traveled with Bob once a month that whole entire season until he passed in 2014. But so I learned a lot, and I really felt like the Lord kept directing me back to another way to heal. And of course I believe in miracles and healing, and I saw it over and over again. But there is also just like common sense and doing things that, I looked in the word healing in the scriptures mostly means therapeuo, which was where we get the word therapeutics or therapy. And it's basically doing the right thing over and over again to help bring your body back into harmony. And even Jesus had miracles, but he also had therapeuo, meaning he prayed for people. Sometimes it was the healing was over time. It wasn't instant. And I think we missed that, and so when I did find my healing through natural ways, I went back to school, and I always thought I would finish in theology or divinity, but I had all these signs to go into naturopathic, to be a naturopathic doctor, and I got so much crap from the church. I mean, it was like, people were like, oh, she's leaving the ministry, she's a witch, oils, frequency. I had a Zyto machine, and I would go, like, say, Florida, and I was going to do a conference, and people would be invited, and pastors would tell their people, don't come, she's a witch, she's got this machine that's the devil, and it detects your frequency, and everyone's going to go to hell if you might get a demon. If you get.
How many years ago was this?
This is 2010.
Wow.
So 10 years ago, 11 years ago. Wow.
I'm not going to name names or churches, but I'm telling you, it was rough. And this is after when I not only got my healing, but I dropped 80 pounds and got off all my meds in 16 weeks. I mean, it was miraculous, some things, because 86% of all physical stuff has to do with emotional. So when I started dealing with the emotions, everything kind of went into place. But, I didn't get how people can jump from, a machine that uses frequency to the devil. I mean, but for real, do you use a cell phone? Do you use an MRI? X-ray are fine, but there's just always
people's fears. I mean, Christians are I got to be careful, but but sometimes, it's the Christians that are the first ones to jump to demonizing something they don't understand. And the fact is, frequencies are something that we are so far behind in understanding. When Einstein said E equals MC squared, that should have been a cue to the Christians. Hey, we need to start understanding what this means, because everything is energy.
Yeah.
Everything has a frequency. What does that mean? Because, yeah, it's all going to, and it all has an effect on us. I mean, I believe that we are the ones that actually influence and change things around us the most, but so do these, you know?
Yes. Yeah. And statistically, you can actually have chaos because these are stagnant. They stay. They're solid and they're status. And so
Yeah.
and they have a certain frequency that they carry and hold. And
Right.
they also record.
Yes.
So when you have a chaotic field and this is introduced, it actually changes the field from the outside in, just by presenting this within the field. And what's crazy is I have a whole card deck that I made, and we did specific, there's 80 cards in here, and each of them have a crystal on it. They're my crystals. We tested if people just have the card with the crystal on it, it changed the field just as much as it did the real actual crystal, which is still honestly, this is quantum physics, it's frequency, it's science,
quantum entanglement. Yeah, and that's the thing, you know. It's like you said, you know, these crystals, they have memory, and it's like some people could freak out and just check out because of that statement, and yet Google it. It's you know, scientists are looking at what can they begin putting data onto that will hold it longer, because you know, our cell phones are good for 5 to 20 years, maybe. You know, the hard drive in your computer, same thing. All these things are limited in their storage. A paper book has more longevity than you know our hard drives. You know, so they're like, what can we start storing things on? And scientifically, they're studying crystals, and they believe that crystals could begin to hold data for 10,000 years. But even beyond that, you know, again, so just saying the crystal thing is totally legit. But if people don't know, they're studying human DNA, which is the best thing that they have found to store data on. And you can actually store all the data that the entire world has to offer on about a meter's worth of human DNA, and it could store all of it on there. So I mean, there's amazing things out there that scientifically they're proven, and you know, if somebody really wants to go way out on the edge, I guess they could call that demonic as well. But I believe the science is simply discovering what God's already done, and a lot of science is very divine.
Well, God is the biggest scientist of all, and
absolutely.
The thing is, this is frequency. This has frequency. All the you know, color, music, you know, worship.
Totally agree.
And so we're 67 megahertz, and when it gets lower than that, we're opening ourselves up to dis-ease. And there's things that can lower, and there's things that can high up. But you know, for those who think that crystals are bad, I'm like, this is crazy, because you've been using them all along.
Right.
They're in everything. They're in your glasses. They're in your watches and your cell phones. You're in most everything that's technology. But people pick and choose. Well, that's good, but this is bad. But so anyway, but yeah.
And it's just typical of human beings, actually, not just Christians. I'll take that away from just putting it on Christians, but human beings as a whole tend to demonize things that they don't understand.
True. Yeah. Yes, and I did it. I understand. It's fair. I mean, I get it. And now I'm hopefully in a better place where literally I don't even care if you come and tell me like Cookie Monster is your real dad, and I would be like, okay, I'll check into it. Like nothing surprises me anymore. You know, I try to be very open. Even with what I do learn, I'm okay if I'm wrong, and you know, I move on to the next thing. I tell everybody, you know, when I said that I wasn't right, or I found out this is more to it, or you know, it's like just to stay humble and to be honest. But yeah, I had an encounter in 2010 with two beings that really shifted everything, and part of that got me to be an ND. And they have come and gone several times since then, and then now in this last, oh gosh, I guess it was about 4 or 5 years ago, I was really having a lot more memories seep through. and not understanding what I was seeing and just kind of putting it off like that's a terrible thing to imagine, or you're really going out there, like, get your mind back, and why would you think such a terrible thing? But then over time, I realized that these things are all the same exact images, that none of them changed, that they were the same colors, the same people, the same situations, the details were exact. And I had to start looking in. I didn't have to, but I chose to look into, like, what in the world is this all about? Um, and the last 5 years has been really going back to figuring out what happened in Montauk. And so,
Yeah.
and some of that I don't want to know probably. And, sometimes I take a break and I'm just like, this is a season, or I'm just gonna like let it go, and then I'm curious again, and I'm okay, and I kind of like transmute and integrate a little more to be open to find out. But uh, you know, a couple things happen. I literally ran into a couple people who were there, and instantly there were some things that came through, and I was just like very much traumatized. One person, someone had sent me a link to a person who's named Max Spears, and when the link came through, I watched him, and I literally just I lost it, because I was like, I know him. I know him. I just could remember everything. Not everything, but everything. Like, there was so much that came through just with that. And I thought I wasn't going to make it for like 3 days. I literally was on the floor in the fetal position for about 3 days, just going like, I don't know if I can handle it. But there was just a lot that came through. And yet, like, at the beginning, when I first saw him, instantly I was like, yes, and I got to find him, and I'm going to get more answers. And then I Googled and tried to find, and I found out that he was actually murdered. And so I was like, I found him, and I lost him in just like a sec. And so, yeah, I mean, it's just been a journey of, finding other people who have been through similar, along the way. It's interesting. I was with Ian Clayton, I think you know him, in Wyoming, God, like 2008 or 9. And there was a pastor there that had come to us and wanted us to help, and said, please, we are trying to figure out what to do. I think she had 40 women recorded at that moment who had all been abducted and impregnated, and then the baby were taken. And I'm just like, that blew me away. I was like, what? First of all, how am I going to help with that? What do you even say? And second of all, I mean, that many cases in just a small vicinity area.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, how do you deny that? Like, multiple people all saying different things, and they don't know each other. And some of them were out of state, some of them was across the line in Montana. So,
yeah.
And those things just kept kind of trickling in, and it just really took me to this path that I'm on now, of just really looking for truth, not for just myself, but for the others, and for so many things have been suppressed, not just technology, but medicine, the truth about the Bible, the truth about, the United States, the truth about the world, and so I've just been, I guess, in this last 5 years, really been committed to bringing forth the truth, and allowing people to have those discussions and to talk about it, and to feel free in a safe place to ask questions without judgment, and just to look into like near-death experiences, or time travel, or super space programs, or all of the above, aliens, health, government, just everything. So, and it looks like you guys are definitely doing a lot yourself. I mean, I haven't ever watched one of your shows, but I know a lot of the people who have been on your shows, and really enjoy their friendships. And I was like, one day I'm going to meet them. I know it's going to be awesome.
And we will. I bet we've been through Alabama a couple times. We're going to be in South Carolina here in the next few weeks, but don't have anything scheduled down that far for a while, so we'll see. I wanted to throw this question out because we had this question for the last person that we had on as well, and it's becoming more and more important to me and our ministry. With all this stuff, you've shared a lot of stuff, which is good. And yeah, we are dealing with it at different levels with different people. How do we look at changing the world in a better way, for the better, through all of this? And the reason I bring that up is because, there are those people who are running after the fix. It's kind of like a drug fix. It's like the Pentecostal or the running to the next big event, and the conference junkies and so forth, trying to avoid that with what we're stepping into, because wow, it's mind-boggling and can definitely lead into some of that again. So, what we're looking at is how do we get people to focus on what's going to actually change the world. Now, people need to be healed. You got to be healed. You got to be healed before you can actually have a good, positive impact on the world. So, I guess that's what I'm asking is how does all this fit into doing something that is going to move our world in the right direction, get it out of all the chaos and the fear and frustration that people are feeling right now?
Yes, great question. I have a whole book about it, actually, called The Science of
Okay.
Yeah. But,
There we go.
my first book was Keys to Third Heaven, and it talked about a lot of this, and this is just kind of like an extra step, more of the science and scriptures to back it up. But everything starts, like you said, on the inside. Everything's an inside job, and everything works from the inside out. And it will take a collective effort, but it doesn't mean that you need everybody. It just
Right.
like Gideon's army. We had 300 people, and look what they did.
Yeah.
So, so on a conscious level and on a neuroscience level, and then with just karma, or you want to call it sowing, reaping and sowing, or the biofield, or what happens in the field with the law of attraction, is everything you think about, talk about, and feel, and then that mixed with your signature code, because we all have an imprint on the code, and that code is projected through the cells out into the field. And then it mixes with what you think about, talk about, and what you feel. And so that is all in the code. And that's what I was seeing after I met Bob for that first time. He prayed for me, and immediately I started seeing fields everywhere. And I actually even went to the doctor, and I was like, my mother's blind, her mother's blind, her grandfather's blind. And so I thought, oh my gosh, something's wrong with me. And is this how it started? And I actually went to an eye doctor, and they were like, at the time I couldn't see far away very well. I wore glasses. I wouldn't see glasses. I use glasses to read up close now, but they said, no, you have like 10/10 vision. And I had upgraded to seeing in this other dimension somehow. And what it looks like is symbols, code, colors. There's some things that I didn't recognize, that I didn't understand, sacred geometry, lots of things were in the code, books and ideas and inventions. And so what we think about, talk about, and feel, and the signature code goes out, and it not only radiates like an antenna sending out, but it also has reception powers. And the heart is the most receptive. It's actually 100 times more than the brain as far as magnetizing in, and that's why they call it the electrical the electric magnetic field, or the auric field, or the aura, or there's a lot of different ways, but biofield, dual, meaning it does two things: it radiates out and it magnetizes. So the best and most amazing thing that we can do in this time is to just be extremely aware of what we're thinking about, talking about, and what we're feeling.
Oh yeah, totally agree.
And then also going into the DNA to see what needs to clear. Like, what do we need? What hasn't worked in the DNA? Because the subconscious and runs most everything, 95% of everything. And the DNA has a lot to do with that. And so you could be like the nicest person and like, I'm nice, I'm loyal, I do all these things, but you could keep getting, something's, in your field and these patterns that are just not working. And it's like, why do I keep getting these liars or these, thieves or, crazy, chaotic people or whatever? It's like, okay, well, let's look into what you're putting out. First of all, you only get what you are. So even if you're nice and all that, it could be even deeper where it goes in, where it's like a signature thing, where grandpa or great grandpa or somebody was chaotic. And like, even if 1% of you's got that out there, everyone will submit to your lowest common denominator, whether they like it or not. It's just, they have to, because it's math. And I don't think a lot of people, I mean, I do think some people, but I don't think a lot of people wake up and go, how can I just be a jerk today and ruin people's lives?
Right.
But you get, out there and you're entangled in other people's stuff, and then you have your stuff, and it's, it's like, if you have, like, what do you call that thing? A thing you jump up and down,
A trampoline.
Trampoline. If you have a trampoline, thank you. And you're sitting in the middle of the trampoline, and you know how it'll kind of dip,
Yeah.
right? Now, if someone comes and sits next to you, what happens? You kind of lean over a little bit,
Yeah.
And if someone comes behind you, guess what? You go back. And this is how energy is. It's, you don't even mean to, but it's just the way it is. It's the law. And so you may find yourself, if you have anything in you that connects to that lower denomination, it's literally an equation that you will submit to unless you're awake to it. Now, if you know, like, I have tendencies to do this, this, and this, and you can be cognitive about it, and you can be cognitive, I'm going in, I'm going to hang out with this person, and she's got this, and I got this, and I don't like this about her. That's really me. You know what I mean? You can be aware. And actually, the scripture says, guard your heart, for it's a wellspring of life. And that word guard does not mean guard. When I think of guard, I think like protect, like get away from me. I got to keep my cards covered. You might get me or do something terrible. But when I looked at the scripture, guard does not mean guard. Guard actually says to be aware of. To be aware of what you're putting out. Yeah. And why would God say that? Because it's a wellspring of life, meaning there's movement, there's a river. Yeah. What you are, you get. And God doesn't want us to have bad stuff. So God's like, hey, be aware. Be aware of the eye gates, ear gates now,
Yeah, I mean, and Paul's very clear to take every thought captive, and that we don't just let everything run, that when you realize, wait a minute, this doesn't align with who I am, I'm going to stop this so that I can align. And that's something I just wrote down, it's something we would teach is alignment, attraction, and impact. That when you actually align with who you are, your identity, that you begin to attract all the things that you're meant to have and supposed to have in order to do and have the impact that you're here to have. But it's alignment first. It's identity, and that really does, your identity has a lot to do with the way you think about yourself, and that comes from ego. A lot of it comes from ego because we're born into this world. We need ego when we come into the world because it's kind of self-protective. But eventually, you got to pass through ego and get to your divine identity. And so anyway, it's good stuff, and it's to me one of the most important things is your identity. So I love this.
Let me show you this thing. Speaking of ego, I don't know if it'll come through on the thing. I just found this. It says, Lego your ego. Instead of Lego your ego.
Yes. Yeah. So, I've thought of that many times. But that tells our age, I think.
Yeah. Probably, yes.
We don't have an age.
Yes.
We don't. Actually, yeah. I mean, hey, all we're counting is how many times we go around the sun. It has nothing to do with how old we are.
Yeah. Yes. So, I mean, as we work on us energetically, we're automatically going to get different results. And I like how you were talking about alignment, because I like to use the word remember. That's a big word for me, to do again, member, union.
Yeah.
And that's what the book has talked about too. The science of miracles, remembering the frequency of love, who is God. And when
Yeah.
we are in God, we can actually frequency hop. And that's really fun to be able to stay in Psalms 91, where if everything we're thinking about, talking about, feeling, and we are love, and we are God, and everything that God is, guess what? That's what goes out into the field, and then you only get a match
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah. No, that's good. I love it. I mean, I've used the term, you know, I am everything that God is, but I'm not Him. Now, some people would disagree with that at different and various levels, but I just I believe that there is a superhuman consciousness that covers everything, and I'm a piece and a part of that, and I am proud and honored to be a piece and a part of that. I don't need to be the whole thing, and if I were the whole thing, many people could look at me and say, you suck at being God.
Yeah. Yes.
But I'm glad I'm not. So he knows what he's doing, and you know, he's bringing it all together. He's the master chess player.
Yes.
He's
God
he's
is
the
good.
most high God.
Yeah.
My
There you
Holy
go.
Spirit. Yes. And going back to your question of, like, instead of waiting for anything external, whether it's God, who
Yeah.
is all about free will, or, you know, Superman or Jesus or the Easter Bunny or a certain government official, you know, we are the will of God. I am God's will. And when we step into remembering that we're the ones that are called to co-mission here on the planet, and to be, you know, Jesus left, highest scalar waves ever, by the way. Jesus left and was like, you know, I'm commissioning you. We're now in a co-mission. And I think a lot of people at some of the programs are like, you know, we're just waiting for Jesus, or it's getting so bad,
Mm.
I can't wait till Jesus comes back. And it's like, I think Jesus would be like, oh, myself, like, over some of the stuff. You know,
Right.
he came to literally teach us to be like him and do greater things than him,
Right.
not to wait on him to come back. I mean,
Right.
we're the ones here that are supposed to be the
Yeah.
Nikos and the Supermans and the
Yeah.
Superwomans.
Well,
Hey,
and
Sharnael.
I'm go ahead, Karen.
I want to ask her, because somebody that doesn't know, can you explain the scalar waves?
Yeah, so scalar waves are, you know, just like frequency. We can test what someone is, and we do different categories. So we can do it on finances, relationship, integrity, what your incarnation was, what you were at birth, let's see, I'm trying to think of some of the other categories, your generosity levels, you know, where you are right now. And so Jesus actually 700 and above is considered illuminated, or, you know,
Wow.
really high. And 1,000 is the highest that's ever been scored on Earth anyway. Now off planet, that's another story. But Jesus is 1,000, and they have tested tons of people. The only other person that was equivalent to that, and this may freak people out, I'm just science information, was Mary Magdalene, or is Mary Magdalene, and they were equal 1,000, which I definitely invite everyone to really look and dig into Mary Magdalene and see who she really was, and who the Bible says she is versus what she really was and is. So I believe, and this is just me, after, you know, only 5 years of studying, but 5 years of pretty big studying, her and just some different things outside of that, that, you know, she was presented very differently in scriptures than, for whatever reason, whether that was on purpose or not. But I believe they were twin flames, personally.
So if obviously I'm guessing there's some people watching. They're going to have this question, so I'll just ask it. It's like, so how did they or how do they test Jesus and Mary Magdalene? How do they know, there were 1,000? Is there
They
something specific that they do, or?
they double blind test, sometimes triple. So different people in different places are all testing at the same, and then after they've done this, oh God, they're scientists, so they've done it. Scientists don't just go, oh, okay, call it a day. We did it once, and there you go. Thousands of times they've done it now, where they've tested and they come back with 99.9% the exact same results. And so now they've tested people who are living on the earth, people who've passed, and they can see, like, over their journey, even if you've passed, like Joan of Arc they've done, or Tesla, or former presidents, or whoever, where you can say, okay, they were born into this, but they came up this high, and whatever.
So is it based on some of their actions, recorded actions, and things that they've done and accomplished? Is it based off of that then? Is that what they're looking at?
It's the field, their field.
Yeah.
Their actual biofield. So if someone's passed, they're not alive to have a field anymore. But you could say,
right.
I'm trying to think of someone who's passed, I guess, Jesus and his relationships. And they'll say,
okay. So that's what I was getting at. Yeah.
How was
all right.
Jesus in generosity, or how was Jesus in his finances, or all the different, there's like 15, 20 different categories.
Okay.
And they can even test what dimension people are in, whether they're in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, all the way up, which there are people on the planet right now who are already in the 10th and 11th dimension, versus most people in 3D, some people even 2D, which is kind of sucky, but anyway.
Man.
2D.
So we got about 10, 12 minutes left. Okay, before we go any further, let's just have you share with us, and we'll put it in the notes as well. So if you're watching this, it's pre-recorded, but if you're watching it, it'll be in the notes, so you can click the links to get a hold of Dr. Sharnael. So what are some of the links that you would want people to get to in order to connect with you?
Pretty much, if you go to swiftfire.org, that is like the main one. If you go to swiftfire.org, you can get on the newsletter. That's the best way to get most of the information of the things that I cannot talk about on most of the platforms, because they took my channel away a few times. And my 10 years work of all the interviews and things that we have on there. But yeah,
Wow.
it started over several times. We have BitChute, Rumble, Instagram, Facebook. But if you go to swiftfire.org and get on the newsletter, you're going to get all the meaty things that I don't necessarily talk about anywhere else. And it'll show you like my classes, my books, my resources, interviews there. I also do consultations, not only for naturopathic, but coaching or energy stuff. And we do remote biofeedback. So if you're far away, I can actually scan you, and we can see where you're at, what's going on. You can look at your organs, your hormones, your brain anatomy, your EEGs, really specific things of what's going on with you. And then we send back the frequencies to you to balance it back. But then if you want, we can do a consultation, and I could say, okay, I'm sending you these energies, but I'm going to give you some homework on some things that will help anchor those in, so you stay, just keep on, trying to get back out again, because habits can keep you right back into the old. And so I do that with people all over the world. We have like 15,000 consultations that we've done now, and growing all the time. We stay really booked up, but we're seeing really amazing miracles and people shifting, and intuitively, dreams, everything goes together. Everything is integration. So if you heal the emotions, you're going to get better in the physical, and vice versa. So we work with all of it. And I love the word integrity, because it means you're fully integrated. So we work with all of it. And that's what I love about, our work is, we have a great team of people that help, and groups, and lots of resources for that.
Wow.
Awesome.
Wow.
Well, So, like I said, now we got about 10 minutes or less left. What would you like to share or get out to everybody in the last 10 minutes that we have?
Oh gosh, I would just really encourage you in this season to be extremely aware of what you're thinking, what you're feeling, what you're talking about, who you're hanging out with. There are three questions that I have been working with over the last few years, and I continue. I used to just have two, but I picked up a new question here lately, and it was about 10. It was 2010 when I first got the question that I heard was, "What are you thinking?" And I stopped myself and said, "What are you thinking?" And I realized what I was thinking was about like Julia Roberts and some other person getting a divorce, or it's just like Sandra Bullock and Jesse James were getting a divorce. I mean, just random. Like I'm like, okay, that's probably not going to help anything. So,
Right.
so I put Post-its all over. What are you thinking? What are you thinking? I put in my car, on my purse, and made myself notes, and that became really, really a biggie. And just because we're on autopilot sometimes, and we're just not even aware where we're going. Recently, my second question that came to me just 2 weeks ago was, where are you? And I was sitting in my living room. My kids were around. I was on the phone. I was answering texts and also thinking about something that happened 5 years ago. Multitasking, all those things. And I realized I am not here for sure. And,
Wow, yeah.
And so I was like, whoops, I recommit, and I got back in my body and stayed with the people that I was with. And I've noticed going to restaurants or wherever, people are just, wherever they are. And even if they're not on a screen, you could be in a room and you could be thinking about what you're going to do when you leave the room or get off the interview or grocery list tomorrow. And so I'm really I'm choosing to train myself more and ask that question and post that all over. Where are you? Yes. Because when we are present, the chemistry of the body is way more in harmony, because the future and the past brings stress. Thinking about the past or trying to, XYZ, all the different futures can really cause havoc and fight or flight. And we've seen that in the scans with the fight or flight, adrenals, everything in the body that messes up from that stress. So staying present, when we are present, we are present, and we are a present. We are God's present. So that's good. And then the last question is that I keep asking, not just myself, but everyone, is, who do you think you are? And I got that from Bobby Connor, because we were at a conference one time and he had an encounter with God and a demonic force. And the enemy, whatever you want to call it, was saying, who do you think you are? Who do you think you are? And just like, whatever. And Bobby said that he heard him ask himself, who do you think you are? Like God was asking him, who do you think you are? And that was around the same time when the thought thing came, where it's like, what are you thinking? And then that was coupled with, who do you think you are? And I was like, wow. So that's just really stuck with me. But now I'm working with all these three things. And then one thing, the last thing I would say is play for no reason. I mean, laugh and go do creative color, go outside, be in nature, get magnesium baths, foot baths, get a massage. Like, this is crazy times. And the more we can laugh and watch funny movies, and I'm not saying like turn it off like it's not happening or deny that anything's going on, but also if we can clear the energy of the fear and the chaos and everything that's trying to bombard, then we can actually be the one that's shifting things. Instead of being like a sponge taking everything on, that we're going to be more like the sun radiating out with every cell that we are, and just blasting people and igniting everyone with God's presence. And literally one of my mantras is, I am that I am, and I ignite the Christ in everyone I contact. And just,
it's good.
Grocery store, post office, wherever, like before you go anywhere, I'm already in that I am that I am, and I ignite the Christ in everyone I contact, and I expect it, and I believe it, and I get results because
Yeah.
that's what my belief is. And to believe is to be alive in something, and I'm alive in Christ, and you are alive in Christ, and we get to
Yeah.
do this. This is a great time for us to be here.
Love that. Love it. Love it. Karen, do you have anything you want to say before we wrap up?
No, but I mean, just stay tuned and stay on the line, Sharnael, as we go to the behind the scenes. And if you guys just again reach out to Sharnael, she's your doctor. So yeah, it's been great. Glad you came on,
Very good.
Sharnael. We
Thank
just
you. Bless you
appreciate
guys. Love you guys.
Yeah. So, yeah, Sharnael, thank you so much for being on. And just thank you to all of our viewers. If you want to see the behind the scenes section, go to our website, kingdomtalksmedia.com. Go to the shortcuts, and there's a place where it says behind the scenes. And you can click that. That's actually a small support for the ministry here, $10 a month. But you get all the videos early, as well as the behind the scenes, which is only for the members. And hopefully we'll see you there. And thank you to Dr. Sharnael. It's been an honor having you on. We finally get to meet. It's been a blessing.
Yeah.
I just want to say, I've talked to Karen last week and with tears in my eyes and just forever gratitude for what she's doing in humanity. And now I get to tell you, like, thank you for what you're doing. It really matters what you're doing. You're such a blessing. You guys are just affecting way more people through social media. You're using a tool that could be terrible and used in the negative, and you are pushing through the darkness with light. And I don't get to see everything you do, but when I see you guys doing something, I send you love, and I just wish you so much love and radiation and peace and health and all the things to you and your families, and just such honor and love for both of you guys.
Thank you. Thank you
you.
very much. I appreciate that a lot. Just such an honor to have you on. Blessings.
Love you.
Karen, thank you.
Yeah. Stay
Thank
on
you.
the line, Sharnael.
Love you guys. And